Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. There's a new convention in town, and it's sure to be mega fun without the mega expense. Comics, toys, collectibles, pop culture. ShadowCon, Saturday, February 1st, 2025 in Orlando, Florida. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silverline Silver Sunday. This Sunday, March the 2nd. We are already in March.
Shut up.
I know.
Time changes next week.
No. That's great.
We're in the Ides of March.
I
thought we signed something not to do the time changing thing.
Not yet.
Nope, not happening. I am your host. I am Roland Man, and I am joined, as always, by my longtime pal, wheeling and dealing, Mr. Thomas Formani Jr., who appears to be frozen. You there? All right, now he's back.
He's like Captain America 100.
Also joined by that man in the mask guy, Mr. Mike W. Belcher.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
And, of course, not a distributor, Mr. Tom Mason himself.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you, Ben.
Hey, how's it going?
Because we've worked together many years ago, but I don't think I've ever met you before today.
What? No way.
Yes, I do remember. Long time ago.
You never met him?
No.
Wow.
Because in those days, in the in the ancient times before the internet, you only met people at conventions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was it.
Well, and of course, we are joined by one of our special guests. The other one is having audio difficulties, and I'm sure he's going to rejoin. Mr. Ben Dunn. Say hi,
Ben.
Ben.
How's it going? Nice to be here.
Welcome, Ben.
So I saw Ben. I saw Ben way back in the Malibu days at comic conventions. But I also saw Ben just not too long, just a couple of years ago. I think it might have been San Diego Con when I went out there with Tommy and Barry.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah. You
guys have always had like a terrific booth.
Oh, thank you.
It's a really solid. I wish other convention publishers would have those kinds of booths. you and the Image guys and Boom always had like a great fan experience, consumer oriented booth that I really appreciated.
Well, we try. Yeah. Been there a long time. We staked our little territory there.
That's good.
Yeah,
Well,
you guys
take over the Diamond booth.
that nice. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, do you think they'll be there this year?
Well, that's what we're here
so.
to talk about. That's what we're here to talk about. Ben, I'm assuming you got one of these in the mail as well
What's
over
that?
the weekend. Did you get one of these in the mail over the weekend?
Can't see that. What is that?
Oh,
It's
but
a
we're not going
diamond.
to send you any money letter.
Oh
Is that what it is?
no, I don't get the business mail. That's
You don't? Okay.
Yeah, that's my brother's purview. I'm just part of the editorial and the creative staff. I'm one of the lower echelon people.
This is what I got over the week. Actually, we just got it in the mail today.
What's it say?
It's a notice of sale, bidding procedures, potential auction, and sale hearing.
Oh,
so,
that's like a foreclosure notice.
I think I don't speak legalese, but I think the concept is, hey, this is what's happening. If you got any problems with it, you need to speak now or forever hold your peace. And then it lists all here on the back. Here's a list of all of the things that's going to be up for sale. And of course, right there at the very top is Diamond Comic Distributors. But
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
They're also
real, huh?
Says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, this was kind of it. And talk about timing. You know, I knew we were doing this tonight, and this comes in the mail. Hopefully Dave will come back so that he can address some of this as well. But
one of the things, so I saw some because we live in the age that we live in, that stuff got posted online almost immediately.
Did it really?
And so one of the things that struck me is that there's a massive list of stuff that Diamond had under their thumb.
Yeah,
like a huge spiderweb network of domain names and trademarks and different businesses.
Really?
Like they were in every aspect of the comics and collectibles industry.
So
they've been around a long time.
Yeah, they have. So does anybody know when Diamond started? I know they were around in the late 80s, but when did they get their start as a distributor?
As far as I know, they were around since '85. That's when we started. So they must have started earlier than that.
Yeah, and my understanding is they grew out of Steve's store.
Well, like
I don't know.
Because
I don't know the history, but I knew they were around in '85. So, and I think we were like the 21st vendor for them.
Really?
So, yes, we're number 21. Believe it or not.
Wow.
So you were legal drinking.
Well, yeah, doesn't mean much now.
No, it well, your loyalty's been rewarded, Ben.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh boy, joy. Yeah, well, it's going to be if this is true, and they are selling off Diamond, that doesn't bode well for the direct comic industry. In my opinion.
And that's really what I want tonight to be all about is the distribution. Well, how did we get here, right? Let's maybe talk about that first. How did we get to this spot?
Oh, I'm sure it was a long and winding road, as you probably all know. The comics industry has always been one of bumpy rides, and it's a lot of things, a lot of egos, a lot of greed, a lot of potential lost. It's just one of those things that the comic industry just never seemed to get with the times, as they say.
Yeah. Dave, is your audio fixed?
Well, I think so. You tell me.
It's the voice of Dave Olbrich.
Last but not least, we are joined by Malibu Dave Olbrich. Older, not necessarily wiser.
Yeah, for sure. That's the absolute truth.
Say hi to Ben Dunn.
Hey,
Ben, long time no see, pal.
Yeah, it has been a while.
We were picking at the bones of Diamond Comics and wondering how how it suddenly collapsed. Thoughts?
Yeah. So the question is, Dave, how did we get here, right? How did we get to this point where Diamond is declaring bankruptcy?
I have
Does Dave see that letter that you got?
Dave, did you see the letter that was that Diamond sent out over the weekend?
I don't think I did. No, is that the one demanding payment or something else?
No. This is the one that's it's a notice of sale, bidding procedures, potential auction, and sale hearing.
It was the opposite.
Yeah, and on the it's 3 pages here. On the final page, it just lists everything that they have up for auction.
Yeah, that seems like the obvious next step.
Yeah. So I don't speak. I said I don't speak legalese, but it looks to me like what this is like, hey, this is what's happening. If you've got something to say about it, you need to say it now, or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, well, yeah, you get a bunch of those that always surround a bankruptcy. God, I have so many thoughts.
Well, so start with them.
Well, first of all, if you're a business that depends on your customer, I mean, obviously you all depend on your customers for your business, but if you're business to business, if you go into any kind of financial difficulty, if you can't keep them happy during the difficulty, you're dead. Right? So if all the people that you've been working with for 20, 30, 40 years, screw it, I'm out, they're just going to leave you for dead. So yeah. Well, I think that's what's happened with Diamond. It's like everybody just said, nope, we're not taking the risk.
And let's be clear,
loyalty, we're out.
To everyone listening, Diamond's customers are not you. They're the publishers. Right? They're not the fans. They're not the comic book buyers that go into the store every Wednesday. They're the publishers.
They're the suppliers, right? Yeah.
The retailers. That's who I meant to say, really. Actually, the retailers, right? That's their
retailers are the customers. But if the customers won't keep ordering from you, and if your suppliers won't keep sending you stuff, even though you owe them money, you're dead. So they're dead.
Yeah. So let's for those who can remember, certainly Ben and Dave and Tom. How did we get to just one? A lot of people complain about Diamond Comics distributors. Some of the complaints are legitimate, of course, but they're always hey, monopoly. Well, how do we end up with Diamond as a monopoly in comics? Anybody want to kind of recap that?
Well,
the short version.
What was your perspective, Ben, from where you sat?
Well, in the 80s, as you know, that's when the direct market started to explode, and we have, several dozen distributors, and those were pretty much spread all over the country, and they were mostly regional distributors that service their comic stores. And of course, I recall how many comic stores actually were around in the mid to late 80s, but my understanding was that there was close to maybe 3,000-4,000 stores, at that time. I could be wrong, but
that sounds about right.
That was my understanding.
It also depends on how you define a store, but yeah, you're right.
Well, it was back then mostly a brick and mortar. This is all before, of course, digital. But when Image came around, that's when big money was being thrown around, and that's when Marvel started to panic, and in their rush to try to maintain their market, they decided to self-distribute. As they bought Heroes World, and they attempted to self-distribute. Coming out, the worst thing a publisher can do is to self-distribute. And they learned very quickly that self-distributing your comics is not as easy, as it looks. And then when Marvel became exclusive to themselves, Diamond got the bright idea to go ahead and start signing up publishers to be exclusive to them. So they got DC, they got Dark Horse. We were asked to be exclusive, but we refused because we thought it was a bad idea, and we never became exclusive with them, and we could have.
Right.
But that destroyed the other distributors, and that's what Diamond's feeling right now, is that they destroyed the other distributors because they basically got the publishers to convince the publishers to go exclusive. Now the publishers, if they had any semblance, of foresight, they would have realized that going exclusive was going to be a bad idea, and because the best way to have the best service is have competition, and the more distributors you have, the more first of all, more sales you're going to get because you got more distributors, and you're going to have better service because you're competing with a half dozen other distributors for, getting your books out, shipping, and getting discounts.
And the great thing about, even if it was just a two-party system with Diamond and Capital, and Diamond was obviously bigger than Capital City, but you could always go and play one off the other.
Sure.
And say, listen, I'm getting this from Diamond. Can I get this from Capital City? And you had two different catalogs to advertise in. You have two different ways to promote your books, and you had two different audiences because Capital City's retailers were not always the same as Diamond's retailers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I have a question.
Fire away.
Are 2 or 3 or 4 really, really badly financed competitors better than one well-financed distributor? Because I'm not sure that's true.
Well, is Diamond a well-financed distributor?
Well, not anymore. not anymore. That was mostly because DC walked away and because they put themselves at the mercy of their suppliers. I mean, all their big suppliers squeezed all the profits out of distributing by going not exclusive, but partially by going exclusive, but by owning all the stuff in the Diamond warehouses.
But
Diamond didn't own any of that stuff anymore. The Image owned it, Dark Horse owned it, Marvel owned it, DC owned it, and Diamond just had to warehouse it for them.
But so this gets into gossipy stuff though. But didn't DC walk away because Diamond let go of their DC guy and they brought in a new person who wasn't a comic book person, who basically started to act like a venture capitalist guy, and DC was like, no, we want a comic book guy, so we're going to leave?
Right. But I think there's a cause and effect to be drawn from the fact that first of all, the retailers also squeezed Diamond like crazy, right? So Diamond was financing a bunch of retailers that were in financial trouble. They were extending credit to retailers all the time and keeping them alive. And more often than not, believe it or not, it actually kind of worked out, right? They didn't get stuck for that much.
The Bank of Diamond, right? Isn't that what?
The Bank of Diamond for the retailers.
Yeah. They get stuck occasionally, but it kept retailers afloat, so it kept the product moving, kept all that stuff going, right? And so the big retailers knew that they could basically shove Diamond around, so they squeezed Diamond on all their discounts, making sure that they got much bigger discounts for their volume, and their suppliers squeezed them on the discount side. So they're working on a razor thin margin.
Yeah.
And when you make a business plan based on making 100 every month and suddenly you're making 30 every month, obviously that changes everything, right?
But also you could. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
But you could also, what Ben said earlier, when Image books were selling 1 million copies an issue or 500,000 copies an issue, even on a smaller margin, you could still be healthy or pretend to be healthy because you were just selling more stuff.
It's volume.
Yeah, but that was 30 years ago.
Right, and
you
so
can only spend those profits once, right?
Right, and so we're also seeing a squeeze where there is no other Image, there is no other 500,000 selling copy book around.
Well, and the last time we saw numbers, right? We don't see them anymore. But the last time, of course, Dave, you used to track a lot of this stuff. Sure. The last time we saw numbers, we had 4 or 5 books that even sold more than 100,000 copies. Everything else was less than 100,000 copies.
Right. Well, it's been true for a long time that the vast majority of the problems the industry is going through could be solved if we could double the number of readers.
Well, that also returns back to the content issue. The thing about it, in the last 5-6 years, there simply hasn't been really, for lack of a better term, really exciting content to get people into comic book stores to want to read the material. Yeah. When you're doing stuff to classic, well-established characters and doing major not organic, but just major changes, with characters that people are sort of used to, and not getting what they were expecting, people are going to abandon, the book because they don't like what they're reading.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to getting people to come in to the stores and get people excited about titles and characters and stories and things like that. I mean, when you go to a movie because you're excited to go see a movie. But the movie sucks, you're not going to go see it.
Tommy and I talked about like the Avengers movie, for instance, right? So you go see the Avengers movie and you get all excited. Woo, the Avengers! I like the Avengers. I'm going to go to a comic shop and I'm going to check out the Avengers. You pick up the Avengers and you're like, wait, who are these people? This is not the movie that I just saw.
Well, I think there's been a major, to speak to what Ben just said, I think there's been a major misunderstanding of the audience, not by the audience, but of the audience, where it's like people like their Batman. And when Batman makes a change, they like a slow step in the direction of Batman.
Yeah.
They don't suddenly want Batman to be a cat.
Right.
And I think what they'd rather have is, I want my regular Batman comic, and also I'll take a comic book about a cat. I don't want Batman to become a cat. And so I think that's...
I think that's all true, but the publishers have been repeatedly and regularly rewarded by the marketplace every time somebody did something big, because the collectors who were depending on their books going up in value would buy up multiple copies of the big changes, but they didn't. Those big changes were short term, and so they had to keep doing it, and it ultimately alienated the fan base they thought they were serving. Right.
Right. I mean, and also
publishers didn't do this stuff because they're crazy people who disregard the audience. Publishers did this because they thought they were going to be rewarded financially and be able to send some of those financial benefits to the creators.
Yeah.
Well, also, before Marvel and DC were bought by huge conglomerate corporations, they were publishers just like you and us, who were publishing. They had to compete with each other, and they had to try to do the best they could to outsell, Marvel and DC. They were pretty much right. Nowadays, I don't even think they consider themselves rivals anymore. I think they just consider them, we're just doing what we're doing, because, Marvel is owned by Disney and DC's owned by Warner Brothers. They have no incentive really to do anything.
To do good stuff.
To do good stuff, yes. Yeah. If you think about it, both of those companies are nearly 80, 90 years old. If they were to go back to the very beginning and just reprint the stuff from the very beginning, they have not 80 to 90 years of material they could reprint. They wouldn't have to do a single new book, at all for the rest of their existence. And the thing about it is they also abandoned the newsstand, which allowed new readers, especially young readers, to gravitate toward. There was no more accessibility for young readers to get into comics, because you had to go to a comic book store to get comics, and sometimes that could be a major trip, and you have to beg your mom and dad to go, and plus comics are pretty expensive. They're $5. That's no longer an impulse purchase, and the accessibility of comics is no longer there. But I can't believe that people don't want to read comics, because manga is a good example of young people still wanting to read comics.
Yeah.
And just reading it in a different format.
I think you can look at graphic novels that like Rand and Telgemeier does, and some of the stuff, this classic graphics novel that come out. I mean, some of those are selling 500,000 copies of a square-bound graphic novel. So kids, my understanding of, and this again, I can't prove this with any actual data, but this is all anecdotal, is that kids do love comics.
Right.
Yeah.
They've done, I think there's two tracks. Kids love comic book movies and about superheroes, and they love comic book video games about superheroes, and they love comic books as a medium, and they'll buy the manga and they'll buy the scholastic graphic novel type stuff. But there's a generation or more that has sort of rejected the Marvel DC superhero comic book in much the same way that generations have rejected Levi jeans. And
I don't think it's a rejection in as much as they don't care. The thing is that if you gave them a reason to care, if you did Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, with stories that actually engaged a younger reader, then I think they would gravitate toward it. They would want to read it because they like reading, good stuff that speaks to them. Yes.
Unfortunately, there's no proof of that in the marketplace. Every time a publisher tries that stuff doesn't sell very well.
Let me run through some of the comments here. Then I got another question to toss up as a result of this. All right, Steve Scott. Hey, Steve, thanks for joining us again, man. He's March 3 there already. Hey, guys.
Hey, Bo.
He says free comic book day is Diamond, right? They own the concept and the name.
And you can buy it. It's up for bids.
No.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't even think about that. That's true.
It's one of their assets. Yeah.
It's one of their
Vava Vavoom says Diamond was around in 1982 because AC Comics in Florida was vendor number 6 or 8, if I'm remembering what I was told.
I think that's Bill Black's outfit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steve Scott also adds, well, the comics have to be where people can discover that they exist first. Not sure how that can happen again.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up a while ago.
On the phone.
Yeah. He says manga is extremely popular here in Europe and the Euro volumes that are not superhero.
Yeah.
Why don't we just get Scott on the show because he's got all these great.
Lark Bark, we've agreed on a date. He's coming on.
All right. Cool.
Lark Bark says hello everyone and good afternoon. Hey Lark Bark, thanks for hanging out with us. If you got questions for the panel, especially Ben or Dave, fire away. David A. Gutierrez, what is up, David? Thanks for joining us and hanging out with us again. He says, has that generation also chosen to dismiss a monthly format?
Yes.
Do they prefer a media read? Okay, so as part of that question, let me ask this.
There's so many aspects to this, Roland. I'm backed up like 4 ideas deep here.
Well, get you a notepad so you don't forget them.
There you go.
So one of the things, right? So, and this is not disparaging, but manga, and you guys, if you disagree with me, say so. Manga is a simpler art style, as is most of the Scholastic comics. The art style is simpler. I'm not saying it's inferior. I'm just saying it's simpler.
Okay, well, there's a reason for that, and I'll explain because I'm a very deep dive into manga. Okay, so
yeah. Well, so my question,
Japanese,
my question is: are we rejecting the more complicated art now?
No, I don't think it's that. I think the thing is that manga establishes that simple stuff because they come out weekly. Okay, and when you're coming out with a comic book or a comic strip, weekly, you have to sort of compromise on the art style so that you can meet your deadlines, every week.
You gotta get it done.
Marvel and DC used to be simpler, right?
Well, the thing is that Japanese, after the end of World War II, they were adapting to the Disney comics. They were huge devourers of Disney comics. They loved the simple art style. It was very popular among, children. And then, of course, Osamu Tezuka took that and started the Japanese manga industry using a very cartoony, simple style that he borrowed from Walt Disney comics. And that's why a lot of the manga still retain some of that look from those earlier days. Of course, manga artists, they can draw just as well as any Western artist. It takes them just as much time to draw something like a Western artist would do. If you look at the old Marvels and DCs, they also employed a very quick, simple style.
Very simple.
And it was all about the artist's style. It was more like it wasn't a rush to try to be realistic, but more a way of telling a story in a style that fits, the story you were trying to tell. If you look at the greats of comic books like Jack Kirby, Jim Steranko, Barry Smith, they all have very, very distinctive styles. Just like in manga, there's very distinctive style. Also in manga, the creator owns 100% of his creation.
Yeah.
So he is vested in making sure that the story he tells is the best story he can possibly tell. Because, the way that it works in Japan is that thousands of manga artists or would-be manga artists, they submit stories to an editor, and the editor decides what's to run. And then if the public, they vote on what's popular in that particular manga. They actually vote. on because they still do the phone book anthology style.
Right.
Okay. And they're also very cheap. You can buy 100-page manga for less than $1. Okay. And that's makes it very, and also they're sold at bus stations, at train stations, at mom and pop stores, everywhere. So it's very, very immersed into the culture of Japan. Here it used to be that way.
Yeah.
You could go to a grocery store, you can go to a drugstore, you go to a gas station, and there would be comics. There'd be a spinner rack of comics. They were 35 cents, 50 cents. They were not. They were an impulse buy. If you were a kid, you had an allowance. You could run down, you could buy a couple of comics, some candy, and you spend the rest of the afternoon reading comics.
Yeah.
And it would not break the bank to do that.
Yeah, they were also a "shut up, kid, quit bothering me" kind of impulse buy too. Where
Now, can we return to that? I don't know. The thing is that the price of printing has gone up astronomically. Nobody does web press anymore. It's all sheet fed, and that's expensive. And the thing is, the margins are also very small.
Yeah. Unless
you're selling tens of hundreds of thousands of copies, you just can't. And the thing is, there's a price point that people are willing to pay, and that's why graphic novels seem to be more attractive, because you can sell it at a higher price point.
Right.
The problem with graphic novels is a large time investment, and there's no guarantee that all that time and effort you spend on a 96 to 100-page graphic novel is going to pay off for you.
Yeah, the great thing about comics as floppy comics is you could make some money doing 4 issues and then collect it as a trade, and your trade had already covered your costs, or your 4 issues had already covered your costs, and so it made the trade more viable.
So Ross,
being able to sell the same story twice makes a huge difference in your spreadsheet for profitability.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, comics didn't leave the newsstand. The newsstand left comics.
Right.
The newsstands all over the country kicked comics off the newsstand. And here's the other thing. First of all, it was filled with corruption. Second of all, it was also they demanded basically the same or better terms of the comic book stores. So why would you sell it at the same discount to a guy that's going to return half of them and lie about 80% of it, or to a comic book store where you get paid for all of them?
Right.
Also, there's a growing, and I think this is true in Europe. It's probably not true in Japan, but it's true certainly in America. Is that since the 1980s, almost every business does not want kids to be hanging around, and so you're not going to find kids at the bus station, the gas station, or the 7-Eleven, or the arcade, or whatever store, because most of the owners have said, we don't want any kids hanging around here. Go away.
Yeah.
And go.
Well, I mean, there is one publisher who's still on the newsstands, and that's Archie. They still do those little digest, size comics that are near the checkout counter, and they seem to do quite well with those, from what I understand. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've been told that they pay quite a bit of money to have those racked in that space, but I can't find a figure that says how much they pay.
Mm.
Well, it must be doing them well, because they're still selling.
And also, like Ben said, because Archie's got this amazing back catalog of stuff, a lot of those books are dominated by reprints.
Yeah.
So they don't have to pay for the editorial again. So that makes everything cheaper, right?
Right.
So we're going to grab that one and grab that one, grab that one, put it in the book, put on a cover, done.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't remember if it was Dollar Tree or Dollar General. You remember, I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. There's DC books now. They got a rack in the Dollar General now.
Well,
Dollar Tree was it? Or dollar and a quarter tree?
He's got to clear out their diamond warehouse, so they got.
I guess.
Got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's another place for kids to see it, though. See the stuff.
Dollar Tree also did their own comic book to do it with an exclusive toy that they had.
Oh.
So they're aware of comics as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Ollie's is the same. You can clear out a lot of comics at Ollie's.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and
That's true. No, they always had a space, didn't they?
I don't know if this is true in Ollie's all around the country, but I was at the Ollie's 2 days ago here locally, and they had just completely restocked their entire graphic novel section, and they had usually it's pretty picked over after Christmas, but now it was like 4 or 5 big bookcases of graphic novels. So I spent my $50.
Yeah, well, you're not going to make money selling new stuff, but if
No.
you got a warehouse full of old stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Get it out.
bookstores-
Yeah, get it
bookstores
going.
like Ollie's are like when a movie finally hits streaming, right?
Right. Yeah. It's the VHS of
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
graphic
no,
novels.
it's what's left over after you've squeezed.
Well, and you don't know what you're going to find when you walk in there. It's all hit or miss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
real
of course.
random. Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple more comments here. Steve Scott says manga also has a crew of artists producing each strip. Could be 7 creators on the one weekly strip. Ben is right. That is why anthologies are a great way to go into creating short stories grouped with other creators. Except, my argument would be anthologies in the West haven't traditionally done real well.
No, they have not.
David H. Gutierrez says at one point Archie leased out that space to Marvel for a bit. I guess it didn't take.
With Marvel, you can't really guess about any of that.
Because here's the thing too, and again, I'm speaking in generalities because I don't really know, but DC and Marvel will make a commitment to something like that, and then almost instantly turn their back on it. They're like, if they don't get like an instant result, they're out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely not in it for
We
the
got a
long
world run by bean counters,
Yeah.
the way it is.
All right,
But
Dave, what's the
Marvel's
next
always
thing?
had that attitude.
Yeah.
They've always had that attitude of what's the next trend? How can we take advantage of it? And how much money can we make on this?
And I would argue that the trend does not come from Marvel and DC. That the trend always comes from indie guys. The trend.
We have a lurker.
My mom.
Hi,
Hi, Mr. Dunn.
Ben, there's somebody behind you going to strangle you.
Oh, there's nobody
Putting your
behind
son on
me.
the spot.
It must be the ghost that haunts this house.
I would argue
Oh.
that one of the things that has always driven change in comics comes from the outside, comes from indie creators, comes from new startups, comes from people coming out of nowhere, making a new thing that doesn't exist. Like innovation doesn't really come from Marvel and DC.
I mean, it's somewhat true. I know that DC tried, they deconstructed the superhero with Watchmen, and they did Dark Knight Returns, those were game changers as far as unfortunately, I think that also started the trend of making comics aimed more to mature readers and abandoning their younger readers.
Right.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately, I think that now the trend has always been that how can we deconstruct superheroes, or how violent can we make them?
Because they're corporations that are always looking for money. It's like, well, Dark Knight made money and Watchmen made money. We need to do more of those.
Hey, they still sell even today.
Yeah, they're
still
evergreen.
in print.
Yeah.
Well,
Dave, what's the next thing on your list?
Well, I know this doesn't necessarily have to do with distribution.
Well, then don't say it.
But it does have to do with sales, right? And you guys were talking about this subject specifically, and cinematic storytelling is a problem, and it's been a problem for a long time. And so, if you can't finish up, if you can't do an 8-page story, you probably shouldn't be working in comics anymore.
So when you say let's for those who aren't sure, what do you mean when you say cinematic storytelling?
Well, a story that used to run 1 issue in Spider-Man now runs 4 or 3.
Okay,
for the same plot points, right? Big double-page spread. Spider-Man has 1 thought balloon, or actually, he says something to the audience, and that's it. And it takes up the whole page, and you realize that the artist did it so he could sell the originals.
So it's like overwriting these days.
Decompress. So it's called decompressed storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on my notes, but cinematic sounds cooler. So
Cinematic does sound cooler.
Dave wants everyone to know he went to college.
Usually those $3 words.
Have you seen Junior's grades?
Hey, Dave was using Marvel cover price words. $4.99.
Yeah. Also,
I learned from Steve Gerber.
I also noticed that covers these days, they don't tell a story anymore.
No, I'm not the insides at all.
They just all they're meant to do is look good in a slab.
Well, because a cover is no longer designed to be an impulse buy like it used to be.
Yes,
right.
That's
Everybody, especially for indies, everybody pre-orders, and so it doesn't really, in technical terms, from a sales perspective, it doesn't really matter what the cover looks like.
Yeah.
Except when I go to a convention and I see Ben's booth or I see Boom's booth or I see, Nick Brucci's booth, whatever, it's like, damn, I wanted that,
I always thought this would be an interesting theory, is that Marvel and DC should just do blank comics, just do the covers, sell the covers, and see if anyone even notices there's no story. They would save a fortune that way. Just slap them and no one will ever know.
Well, that's right. Make a partnership with CGC. And just,
Hey, Tom, we almost did that though, right? We put all our bags in a bunch of comic books in bags. You couldn't look through them before you bought them.
We argued for all of that stuff because I always argued that we should start a miniseries at 4 and count down.
Yeah.
So like if number ones always sell better, then make your 4th issue number 1 and go 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
That would be.
I thought when DC, this is years ago, back in the ancient times, when DC had a cross-company event, they called it Countdown. I thought, well, that would be great if they actually counted down.
Counted down?
Yeah. But they didn't.
Hey, Ben, speaking of distribution, what are you guys doing now? Like, what's the strategy going forward for Antarctic Press for distribution?
For now, okay, I'm not I know what's going on. So right now we're just riding the wave with Diamond at the moment.
Okay.
We have been in contact with Lunar, but they have given us, we'll let you know in 60 to 90 days.
Yeah, what is the deal with that? I hear a lot of people are having that problem.
I don't know. We have no idea. That's just what they told us.
They just don't want to deal with anybody but the super 2 or 3 big guys, right? Is that what's going on?
Those are the ones that are profitable from their point.
Yeah, but you are a big guy.
Penguin doesn't care. Okay, first of all, we don't sell enough books to justify their time and effort. You have to sell at least $1 million, retail a month or a year to even have them, get back to you, And with Lunar, like I said, they said we'll get back to you in 60 to 90 days. It's not like they're aware of who we are, but it's not like they wouldn't pick us up. It's just that they're a small distribution company and they don't know whether they can handle taking on a lot of small publishers, especially ones that are our size.
Too much overhead for them, I guess.
They may feel like it's not worth the effort.
At some level, good for them from the retailer's point of view. Do as much as you can do well. Don't try to do too much and do it all badly.
Well, the one thing I could say about Diamond was very, very generous about taking on, other publishers. But with them going away, that no longer is viable. Now, we have considered going to Massive, but the fees that are associated going with Massive.
That is insane. Roland posted something to us the other day about what the deal was, and we're like, no, this that can't work.
Margins are
that's a joke, right?
Already thin enough. To tack on a distribution fee plus a percentage would not be conducive. Now, there are a few loopholes we could take advantage of to increase our viability, but it's still, even then, it would be a very, very thin margin. And we're considering it, but we're not quite sure we're ready to make the leap.
Yeah, that's got to be really hard, Ben. You have my sympathies.
It is tough. So what does this mean for editorial? What does this mean for your actual book?
Well, we had to make some tough decisions. One of the things we had to do was we had to put a temporary hold on all creator-owned projects. Right. And we had to cancel we had to temporarily suspend all our anthologies, only because we do not think that we could make any type of money on those books. Now, we do own our own IPs, and we do have control of some titles that are strictly ours. So we're focusing all our attention on those titles, so that we have complete control over that. Now, the only viable alternative is, of course, crowdfunding and direct to consumer, and that's what we're mostly aiming our sales at. and that for the time being, we're hoping that will keep us above water, and until we can get a decision from Lunar. Now, like I said, we're thinking about Massa, but at the moment the numbers just aren't adding up for us to make it viable.
Right.
Yeah. So there've been a lot of rumors floating around. Of course, you know how the industry is with rumors. This distributor popping up. This one going to add. I heard Universal's looking into. Universal Canadian distributors looking into the American market. What is this a time that are we going to see new distributors pop up? Are we going to see some of these guys like Universal enter the American market? What kind of predictions you guys have for distribution?
I have two things to say about that.
All right.
Yes, I think they will, and unfortunately, there's not enough money. There's not enough money to keep Diamond alive. Lunar and anybody else that's in the business is going to struggle. So new competitors only undermine the profit margin of the existing ones and put themselves at risk. So there's just no money in the room. We're trying to, this, I don't know if this is still true, but it was true 2 years ago. Diamond's catalog had 800 comic books a month.
It's crazy.
Right? There's just too damn many comics. How does a distributor, you have to give each of those publishers a certain amount of service. There's no way around it.
Don't put comics on Dave's lawn.
So I was reading an old Marvel team up this past week, and they had the subscription list. You remember how it used to say, hey, you subscribe to all your favorite Marvel comics. I counted them. And this was probably 70, I'm going to guess 77 maybe. There were 21 titles.
Right.
That's
why somebody could buy them all, and that's why that's also why most of them were profitable, because if you wanted to buy all the Marvel comics, you could. And everybody was buying a bunch of them, and so you didn't have to choose. You only had 21 to choose from. You didn't have 80 to choose from.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the whole system is just fractured, and I don't want to discourage new people from getting into the business, but holy moly, it's really, really hard to get any traction at all because the audience has got too much choice at some level.
Yeah. Ben, what do you think? You think some of these other distributors are going to pop up and take the place of Diamond? I mean, I guess we're making the assumption that Diamond is going away.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good. But my feeling is that if there's a vacuum and there's money to be made, someone's going to fill it. Yeah. Maybe they'll start small. Maybe they'll try to give terms to retailers that will seem, reasonable and that they can actually make some money on. Maybe the industry itself can turn around by actually producing material that people want to read. And the thing is that, it may be a clever distributor will find new venues to get comic books into non-traditional, outlets, places that you wouldn't think, like it used to be underground comics were distributed in head shops.
Yeah.
And maybe independent comics can be sold on college campuses. Maybe independent comics can be sold in high schools, just like book fairs, or remember those bookmobiles they used to have. Mm-hmm. All it takes is a couple of clever entrepreneurs to see that there's money to be made. And the thing about comics is that, once it's in your blood, and there's going to be someone who's going to say, I love comics, I want to save comics, I want to do something with comics, and maybe they'll create a new business model that will be something that's going to be unique and different, that will hopefully allow comic books to thrive and to survive. It's obvious to me that people do want to read comics. Manga is a good example of that. I mean, I keep bringing that up, but the fact of the matter is they're doing very well. They're in bookstores. They're not in comic stores. They're in bookstores. And the publishers, those are just reprints of material they have lying around in Japan that's been there for months or maybe even years. Right. And Japan
that's
produces.
Why it's to be profitable, right? that's why it's easy for that stuff to be profitable, because they've already paid for the editorial 10 times over.
That's right. They just pay a royalty to the creator, and the rest is just pure profit for them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's black and white, so printing of those books are dirt cheap. I mean, anyone know can tell you the printing in black and white is way cheaper than printing in color. Now, maybe Marvel and DC might decide, you know what, let's reprint our color comics in black and white and sell it for like $1 and see where that goes. You know, maybe kids won't care whether, maybe they're so used to reading manga now in black and white, it doesn't matter to them of comics in color. You know, I mean, that could be something that could be looked into as well. And I like to think that there is a future, you know, for comics. And I believe that the comics as an art form will continue to survive. And as long as there's crowdfunding outlets and direct to consumers, there'll always be a need for comics. It's just that the model itself is undergoing a fundamental change. And what comes out is going to, you know, it remains to be seen.
Yeah. Hey, Ben, what's been your experience with digital? I see Image just signed up with a new digital distributor, and certainly if you can cut out the need to print it and ship it, that makes stuff a lot more profitable in a big hurry. But you still got to find the audience. The audience is just sitting there. So what's the problem?
I think digital is going to be a big growth industry, and there's no question about it. I mean, first of all, it's convenient, and people can buy a comic book online for less than $1, you know, and they can be entertained, you know, while they're sitting on a bus, you know, sitting in a plane or whatever. They can read a comic book on their phone or iPad or whatever for very little money. And the good thing about AP is that we have 40 years of material that we can, you know, draw from that. And I will guarantee you, not everybody in the world has read our stuff. So, you know, there's a huge potential audience out there that that will be reading our stuff for the very first time, you know, and hopefully that'll entertain them. You know, so we're investing in an AP app so that we can start uploading our content for people to buy and to download. And I've noticed that
instead of opening your own hot dog stand, perhaps get in the store that's behind the hot dog stand and get in there with Image on that what do they call it? Sweet shop. at least check it out. Well, if everybody can go to one place and get it, I think you'd benefit, right?
Yeah. Well, I also look at comic stores now as sort of like what vinyl record stores are. You know, there's going to be people who want a physical comic, you know, and there are going to be people who want to buy back issues. You know, what I probably will see that smart comic book retailers are going to adapt to that change, you know, and they'll continue, but they'll also sell more. They'll be more like less of a comic book store and more like a pop culture outlet, you know, with comics. And people hopefully will come in and check out an old issue or something, or check out something new and to flip through.
Yeah, I think that's real smart. Yeah.
So I agree. Since you threw it out to all three of us, Roland, all three of the older men of comics. So I agree with Ben. I think that, you know, if you look at it, years ago, there was no crowdfunding. There was no Kickstarter. There was no digital stuff. There was, you know, the manga audience had not yet solidified like it has now. They were just getting a toehold into bookstores. There wasn't this stuff. And now suddenly there is stuff that we couldn't have predicted 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so I think the time is right for something to sort of have. We're not at a moment of depression, really. We're at a moment of change where, and I think some smart entrepreneur or two or three are going to come along with something new and different. And it may not be inclusive in the sense that we're not going to take all 800 comic books a month and do that. We're going to have to pick and choose, just like Lunar does, just like Penguin does, and figure out who's going to come into this new system. But I think because I think to what Dave said is like, if somebody came in now and said, I'm taking all the comics, here's my new distribution company, I'm taking all the comics that nobody else has taken, I think that would fail miserably.
Yeah. Because also another factor is AI. You know, the thing, I know a lot of people have strong opinions on AI, especially in the art community, you know, but unfortunately, whether you like it or not, it is here to stay. You know,
that's what we said a few weeks ago.
And the thing about it is that people who couldn't draw now have the ability to draw.
To fake it.
And it is going to be a strain on people who can. Now, my feeling about that is that it's here. You can't reverse it. The genie's out of the bottle.
Right.
So how do we adapt to that new environment? Will people buy AI comics? We don't know yet. The jury's still out. But the first person who does a truly AI comic and it becomes a commercial and financial success, I can guarantee everybody will do it.
Right.
The audience never cares about what goes on behind the scenes. They don't care.
Yes, they just want to be entertained. If someone creates an AI comic that is very entertaining, and people love it, then I promise you there's going to be a floodgate open for AI comics to come into the industry.
Right. And it'll shake itself out too, like all other comics do, where the great ones will rise to the top and there'll be like 3 or 4 AI comics that sell really well, and then there'll be a bunch of crappy ones that don't sell at all and they'll drift away.
Hey, Tom, haven't I always said, though, a healthy market always has a little bit of room at the bottom for profitable crap? It has to, or else you don't have a healthy market.
Well, I don't have a career if that's not.
One of the things my brother always said is the only way to really succeed in comics is you got to keep putting out content. If you're the comic industry is just like a swimming shark. You have to keep swimming. The thing is, the minute you stop, you're going to die. And that's the thing is that people only care about what's on the stands at that very moment.
Right.
If you don't have a presence the next week, then people just move on to something else.
Right.
So that's why you constantly have to come out with product, and you have to constantly come out with something that people will want to buy, month after month after month, year after year after year. And that is the secret, in my opinion, the secret to withstanding, any type of major upheaval in the comic industry, because you give people something that they want to buy, they'll buy it. If you don't,
I think that's really smart, Ben.
Yeah.
You got to feed the monster for sure.
You got to feed the monster. Exactly.
That's because it's for me, the weirdest thing about comics is that like every other hobby, you can sort of pick up and run with it at your own schedule. But comic books are a scheduled business where your hobby is every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you're going to be dropping $40, $50, $60 to get your comics because they come out every month and new comics come out every week.
And all the back issues.
Right. There isn't another paid for. I mean, you could say television is that kind of hobby, but you don't really pay for it on a daily basis like you do with comics. And so
you pay for your subscription.
Monthly, and you watch whatever you want. But comics are a thing where you have to sort of invest a lot of time and effort. So if you're a comic book fan, you are in. You are deep in a business that is like no other business.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that's unique about comics, I think, and maybe other businesses have this aspect, but not to the same ratios, which is comics are half or so readers and half or so collectors, right? So you can go on YouTube, you can see just as many videos about how much the price of this or that has gone up as you can about people talking about the adventures and the stories and the art in their favorite comics. And so if you go deep into digital, then you're basically cutting out that entire half of the market that wants the price of their book to go up.
But you're chasing an audience that might be readers that you don't currently have yet. So it's
it's complicated, but you can't.
You got to do both.
The people that don't appreciate that dual aspect of comics always fail. If you don't consider both sides, you always fail.
That's why you can take your digital material. One of the things I think that DC did really well is they did that partnership with Webtoon for a little while, where they did some Batman stories in the Webtoon style, and then they collected them as graphic novels. So they got the best of both worlds. They found the Webtoon audience on the digital with the phones, and then they found the print audience by putting them in trades.
Yeah, if they're popular enough online, people will buy the books. Lore Olympus is a great example of
that.
It's won a bunch of Eisner. So Hard to beat a deal like that.
And there are people who say who will say, I don't like comics. I just read Lore Olympus.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I got news for you. You like comics.
That's right. Pops has joined us here. Pops says collectors do not care about digital. When the power goes out, you have nothing.
That's why I keep my device charged.
That's right.
I tried not to go with it.
I download some stuff on my iPad. I can read it for at least another hour.
The fact of the matter is, I don't think most people who read digital comics care about the collecting aspect.
I don't
that's why they're there, right?
Yeah, they just want to read something to pass the time away, and there's a title that interests them. You know, the 2-hour plane trip, you know, goes very fast when you're reading a really good, you know, comic book or novel.
Are you thinking the digital people are more like the TV watching people? We're not collecting the TV shows; we're just watching them, right? So
they're also, I think they're like the video game people, because Dave and I have our friend Chris Alm, who's in video games, and he said there are basically two types of gamers. One is there's the hardcore gamer who gets involved in the fighting games with the stats and all the other stuff, and then there's a whole other category of gamers who are like, I just want to play tic-tac-toe. I just want to play
or whatever, right?
I just want to play. I want to crush candy or whatever, and that's it. They're both gamers, but it's two different types, two different audiences.
So this is an interesting comment here. Nicholas Gear, what's up, Nicholas? Thanks for hanging out with us. He says AI companies are claiming songs created by their AI engines.
Nope.
So if you use AI to create a comic, you're likely going to have to share rights with the AI company. That's interesting.
You can't copyright it anyway.
You have to read the terms of service, I'm sure.
Generated by AI is copyrightable, so
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah. That was I forgot about that because I actually shared that in my class.
Yeah, but all it takes is an act of Congress. I mean,
that's what I was about to say, Ben. It's maybe that it's the way it is now, but tomorrow it might not be.
Yeah, some AI company with millions at stake, it's going to influence some congressman and say, "Hey, you need to pass a law that allows us to have copyright on anything our AI generator makes." And all that congressman has to do is pass a bill, and sign it into law. It says now AI companies now have copyright over anything generated by their engine.
One thing I don't understand: why hasn't everybody that those AI companies have stolen from sued them out of existence?
And that might be possible if your content,
they're training it on trademarked and copyrighted material, and then regurgitating it. And
it
onto a computer screen.
All it would take is
you should sue them till they can't bleed anymore.
Well, the problem is that if you're a content creator and you know your stuff is being used, first you have to prove it, and second you have to go against a company that can probably draw out the litigation for years, and can you afford to last that? That's how Disney operates. They don't care if they win or lose. Okay, they just want to draw you out till you're bankrupt.
So the test,
you can't fight anymore. Yeah.
So the test is a comic book artist now toiling at DC or Marvel or in the independent market does not have enough money or flexibility to go after the AI company.
No.
So that's a non-starter. Where it really happens is when Disney senses that their finances are at risk because of AI, then they will start suing the AI companies, or more likely make some kind of deal.
Disney will just call somebody, and those people will be gone.
Or Disney would just buy the company,
like the Clintons.
Right, that's right. They could. What Ben just said, they'll buy the company.
Yeah,
that's right.
And they'll just start. You know how much money they could save if they just did AI for their animation. I mean, gosh, we don't have to hire these human animators.
Right.
You know, we can just do this AI animation by doing a few prompts,
animators are
and we
cranky.
save millions.
They want weekends
off. It's already started.
They've already gone from hand drawn to computer drawn, so we see the progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the progression.
And my prediction is that they're going to have AI where you, as an artist, can train it to draw like you.
Right.
Yeah,
you can copyright that.
Yeah,
that's you.
I think that's fair use, Ben, as opposed to the theft that's going on now.
Yeah.
Well,
we talked about that.
Unless they make animation later after I'm dead and use my style.
Yeah, I don't care about that. You're dead.
Then it belongs to your estate. Then it belongs to your estate.
I would like to leave it to my estate, though.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that people, for the most part, I mean, especially people who really appreciate, handmade things. Yeah. Okay, they'll start to appreciate just how, a handmade comic drawn by, a real artist with real writers,
Right.
real colorists, how much they can appreciate that as opposed to some, computer generated monstrosity. And just the same with animation. People can tell if an animation is AI generated.
Right.
And for now, no one's for now the AI is limited. You can't really do that much with it, but sooner or later it's going to get more powerful. Now, like I said, all it will take is something to become financially successful that will open the floodgates.
Because I think that's really an important point. Is that so far, the AI generated stuff has not made the millions of dollars that makes people pay attention. Right. So far, it's mostly just like hobbies. Oh, look how I remixed this thing. Look how I
but if you go back into the 70s and early 80s, early CGI was very bad, very wonky. And now look at it now. It's amazingly realistic.
I mean, a year ago we were like, oh man, there can't be AI generated video, and now we see it all over Facebook, and you're like, is that real or not? And then you see somebody more funny, and you go, oh.
Computer animation used to look like that.
I saw a penguin jump up and down and gave somebody a flower, and I'm like,
they're already doing
that real?
Fakes.
That was real.
You gotta sometimes do a double take when you see a deep fake of a celebrity.
Yeah. Oh, that's I'm actually more worried about that than I mean, how many wars are going to get started because somebody's faking something like that?
Yeah,
I know it's terrifying.
I've seen a lot of these sports celebrities. Of course, during college football, coaches will get up there and say, and I'm like, wait, what? He said what? I'm like, oh no, that's fake. That's fake.
You would think
they've got it so they can train the voices now, and God, it's insane.
Yeah.
Did you not learn anything from Terminator? I mean, come on.
No,
apparently not.
That's the thing. Like 10 million movie fans are like, did you not watch the movies?
Yeah, but in the same regard, if we could bring dinosaurs back, I would do it.
What I'm also
you're what's wrong with AI.
Possibly go wrong.
And I'm afraid also that these robots are coming out now that can actually mimic human motion and stuff like that. I mean, you could have a robot draw.
Just look at Tom. He's a robot.
Well, it's not. It's it used to be funny when you got to see the dancing mechanical dog that the weapon, the General Dynamics or whatever was making, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, that robot dog now has a gun, and now it's got
the dog's fighting back now. Wait, but that's not funny anymore.
So before we circle back here, Resistance Publishing says the biggest problem I have is that the masses are being dumbed down and not educated enough to appreciate traditional art in 2025. So it'd be easy to mislead them into supporting AI art.
Yeah, you're not gonna go through the entire world and make people smarter. So you better.
That's the problem.
I try that every day, Dave. That's what I try to do every day.
But I think when you go
you're gonna have to live with what you got.
Well, also one of the great things about comics is that the people that make the comics, you have a chance to actually meet them and see them, and they're like, it's like going to ancient Williamsburg and seeing the guy make the pottery. But you can see, comic books that are handmade by actual people. You can talk to them about their work, and you can see the work, and you can see how they work. There's a lot of value in.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that people really appreciate and understand things that are handcrafted. I mean, if you look at people still collect comics from the 50s and the 60s and golden age, and let's face it, those comics, if you looked at them at that time, they were very crudely drawn and but people loved them. And the same thing goes with, like, you compare a classic car to a modern car, there's no comparison,
right?
And people are also starting to collect vinyl again. I mean, that was a shock to me. I said, people are collecting vinyl again, and it's just things can turn around. People can understand that maybe digital and all that stuff, maybe it's convenient, but it's soulless. When you have a human behind something, then they know that something of you was in that craft, and they know that they appreciate that.
But here's the question I have in regards to that: are there enough people that care about that? We're talking about,
a big question.
We're talking about the consumers here, right? We're talking about people who are buying this stuff.
If it's important to you, then you'll continue to do it, and hopefully there'll be enough. Now, I'm not saying.
I mean the people buying, right?
Well, they do. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if you think about it, if you had an online comic that's being offered on, like, say, Global Comics or Webtoons or whatever, and you had 100,000 people pay you $1 to read your comic, that's $100,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, if you had 1 million people reading your comic, they paid $1. It's $1 million.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I
I
want.
mean,
That's
so
exactly
the
what I
potential
want.
is there.
That's my choice. Yeah.
You
I
know,
love
it's just getting people to
Yeah.
discover your comic and
Yeah.
paying you that
Well-
$1.
And I think what we're also seeing is a return to the individual craftsman as their own celebrity. So like they become the brand. So you're not
right.
like Mike does his own comic. He does one comic. It's
Yep.
his brand and it's his thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the era of the big middle-sized company as a startup is going to be. People aren't going to say, "Oh, I'm going to start my own company now."
Right.
People are mostly going to say, "I have a story I want to tell. This is my comic, and this is what I'm going to do."
I
Yeah,
think
I think
about Randy Ronaldo when you say that, Tommy.
Well,
Yeah.
we're in a funny business, actually, because we are art and commerce. Okay, we
Yeah,
like
right.
to do art,
Yeah.
but we know we have to make money.
Right.
You know, because if we don't make money, we can't continue our art. So
Right.
the main objective, of course, is to create something that not only fulfills you as an artist, but also will resonate with people enough that they'll support you. You know, and of course, it's every creator's dream to have their creation hit the zeitgeist of popular culture, and to make enough, with it, that you can retire for the rest of your life, that you will be known for that particular. I mean, I'm sure
Everybody wants to be Men in Black.
well, I'm sure when Eastman and Laird started Turtles, they could never imagine at that time that it would be such a huge, popular icon.
Right.
They were just making fun of Miller's Daredevil.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you turn that into a business? And that yet, if you had
It
said,
happened.
I'm going to do a parody of Miller's Daredevil and make fun of it, and I'm going to use Turtles, and then said, and here's the thing, it's going to be a 1 million copy seller, and I'm going to make so much money I won't even. You would laugh at that guy. And
Yeah,
then
they probably had no way of knowing.
And there were
that was
hundreds
what was
of other
gonna
people
happen.
who also made money because they were so popular.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is a great comment here. David A. Scudero says Jurassic Park, Terminator, and Idiocracy are great documentaries.
Yes.
You think they learned by now?
No, they didn't. It's a great thing about our culture is that they don't learn. People.
Here's my question: what does Mike Belcher think
about what part of distribution? Or I'm sitting here I'm absorbing your guys' wisdom.
I apologize in advance for any wisdom I might have shared.
Yeah.
All right. So as we wind up here, so here's the question for you. Let's just make the assumption that Diamond goes away. Okay. And I'm you guys know me. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm always holding on to think that, you know what, and I've had conversations with a couple of you that Steve Jeppe loves comic books.
Yeah.
And it's his company, and so I think if there's a way for him to save Diamond, it's going to happen because he's a comic book guy. Now, you can't work miracles, and I don't know what they need, but I remain optimistic. But let's assume that Diamond goes away. What's going to happen to Antarctic Press? What's going to happen to the small companies who won't pay or can't pay that massive fee for Massive, and who these other distributors, Lunar, won't pay attention to? What's going to happen to them? These guys have been in the catalog, right, with Diamond before. What's going to happen? Are they just going to go away, or are we going to cease to get new blood in comics that way?
Well,
What a depressing quote.
me personally, I think that because of crowdfunding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and Fund My Comic, and I actually will see a plethora of new crowdfunding sites coming up, to take advantage of this new dynamic. As far as small publishers are concerned, they do have an outlet through crowdfunding. They can basically let the market speak whether they want to people want to support their project. If they're successful, they can continue putting out the projects.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully we'll get a large amount of supporters. You know, and maybe somebody will. Maybe a bigger company like Penguin or Random House or whatever will see that and say, "Hey, we need to pick this guy up. He's been selling, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of this book. If he can make that kind of money, then maybe we can make that kind of money."
You look at
and of
somebody
course,
like
we have direct to consumer.
Yeah. You look at somebody like Brian Polito, right? I mean, the guy does what, like he does like about 4 year quarterly, and he pulls in easily $150,000 to $250,000 per campaign, right?
He just built a giant new building for he and all his employees.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So they found, and I know that they are also in the catalog, but I don't think that's where the bulk of their income comes from.
It's crowdfunding.
It's crowdfunding.
But the thing about Polito, and I've said this 100 times already, is that he is his audience. Like he is. If you've met Brian, his comics are exactly the kind of comics a guy like Brian would make.
That's right.
He knows his audience.
That's right.
He knows his audience because he is his audience.
Yeah.
And so I think, and so he wouldn't be publishing a comic that I write because I don't write that kind of stuff. He wouldn't be publishing the books that Ben publishes, and he wouldn't be publishing Mike's stuff because we're not his audience and we're not his kind of books.
Right.
But he's found that big. It's hard to say it's a niche if he's pulling in that kind of money.
Right.
But
Yeah.
He's found an audience.
Yeah, it's a big audience too because he's always doing great.
I have a completely different take on the future of Diamond.
All right.
Because I think if Jeppy loves comics, and I've known Jeppy. Dave and I've had dinner and drinks with Jeppy on a couple of occasions. Dave more than me. I think if Jeppy is anything like any other American businessman, he's already put his assets into a different company, a different LLC. He's going to move everything that he can over into this new company. He's going to announce New Diamond in about 6 months once it all shakes out, and he's going to be back in business.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised about that either.
Well, I mean, Rich Johnston ran a story about it, right? And they said that if Diamond can actually collect on, what was the calculation, about 80% of their outstanding debt, they could get really close to getting out of bankruptcy. But so many people have pulled out, and so many suppliers have pulled out, and so many customers have pulled out at this point that probably can't save them unless there's some big rush to get back in. But remember, one of the reasons we had the big influx and the giant numbers of titles, and the reason it was easy to get into Diamond was because they were afraid they were going to miss the next Turtles.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't want to run the risk of being the distributor that didn't have Turtles when one of their competitors did.
Well, it worked well for 30 years, so that's a pretty good plan.
Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
No question.
And also, I think, you know, in general industry terms, they weren't the only guys looking for the next Turtles.
They weren't.
I think everybody, it's a hit-driven business.
What's up,
Speaking
Woody?
of Diamond, let me ask you a question.
We all seek a well-paying niche. That's right.
Let me ask you guys a question.
If you find one, you let me know.
What's the question, Ben?
If you're a retailer, comic book retailer, would you prefer to have a smaller discount but non-returnable, or a larger discount but make it returnable?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a touchy one.
You know, so here's the problem.
Could I split it? So could I
answer the question, Mason? Come on.
Well, because again, I don't know anything. I'm the very definition of mediocre white guy, and so I think could I take my indies non-returnable because that's a shot in the dark, and could I take my Marvel and DC titles returnable up to a certain point?
So you
because
get
Marvel and DCs are consistent sellers in theory, and I would have a regular audience for those titles.
Yep.
But my indies are hit and miss.
Right.
And that way I would have a little bit of a chance to take.
Well, chances are Marvel and DC would never agree to that because because they can afford not to agree to that.
Right. They can.
Yeah.
You know, but for other publishers, that could be a viable alternative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just putting a.
Also, I would take returnable. Like if you had, like a weird new comic that didn't fit into anything, and it was done by people that I recognized, and I could take it returnable, like it as a new thing. Like maybe not, I wouldn't want all my comics to be returnable, or if I was a retailer, but maybe there's the one or two that I could take a shot with.
Yeah.
But the industry also goes insane, and they, I've only got 500 customers a month, therefore I'm going to get 1,000 copies of this returnable comic. And so
because they all want two.
Right. They all want two. So that's right. Because I'm just going to assume out of nowhere that my customers are going to want two of this hot new thing. So I'm going to, and it's returnable. So I'm not going to lose anything.
Retailers would abuse full returnability.
Yeah.
But being risk averse, I think I'd still take the stuff non-returnable just because of the labor and handling and all the nonsense that would go into keeping track of the returnables.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
And there's a lot of hidden costs in there if you think it all the way through to the end, right?
Yeah, it's probably true.
That's why I'm comfortable knowing nothing.
Because you're going to have to return it in the condition that you got it, right?
Right.
You can't return something to me that's all ripped up.
You can just rip the top half of the cover.
That's another serious problem with comics, which is the pristine condition that some people expect to buy their comics in.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's beyond.
I know that.
But that's only, that's not true of the digital kids.
No.
And that's not really true of the manga kids.
Oh yeah, they don't care.
They keep it. Ben, do you know if the kids in Japan take their manga comics and put them in little plastic bags?
As far as I know, the thing about it is that there's really no quote unquote collector's market. I mean, there's not really a back issue market for old manga, basically, because the thing about publishers is that if there's a popular manga, they're going to reprint it till the cows come home. So it's always readily available.
Right.
I mean,
where is it available?
Hmm?
Where is it available? Where do you buy manga in Japan?
Oh, everywhere. You
Yeah.
can buy them at grocery stores. You can buy them in bus stations. I mean, Japan.
And I think this is part of our problem is that we don't have that.
That's true.
Anymore.
Japan's a mass transit nation. I mean, it's the size of California. So it's a small country. So everybody takes a mass transit. So but there's bus stations. That's where you sell manga. Train stations. That's where you sell manga. Your normal corner mom and pop store. That's where they sell manga.
Yeah.
And and the thing is that manga is produced very cheaply. They want to sell, as much manga as they possibly can. So they put it on the cheapest, destructible paper you can think of. It's practically tissue paper, and they print it in black and white. So, to them, the attitude is just to get it out there, and have as many people read it as possible. Because that's your attitude. Kids don't collect it because there's no room. Okay. Japanese houses, if you know anything about them, the average Japanese does not have a large,
So what do they do with them?
They throw them away. And when I was in Japan,
disposable.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't throw away any
manga everywhere. When I was on the train, I didn't have to buy manga. People just
pick it up off the seat.
Pick it off the seat. Nobody cared about taking a big thick manga home with them, because it would just take up space. And since there's no back issue collector's market there's no reason for them to collect it.
So I could buy it.
Boy, that's exactly what we need.
Thanks,
though.
Woody.
We need in my opinion, we need a comic book market that's wildly dominated by the people that read it, appreciate it, and throw it away.
So that's what comics were. They were disposable.
Right. Exactly.
They're rolled up in your
10
back
cents,
pocket.
you could get a comic,
I say that all the time. I roll up my comic and put it in my back pocket.
You shared it with your friends,
So I'm just stunned. The great thing is that I've just heard tonight is that if I was a kid in Japan, I could buy a manga for basically $1 at the stop in front of my house.
Yep.
I could read it on my way to school, and because it's a big, thick, 96 or 128 page book, whatever. And then when I got to my stop at school, I could just leave it at the station for the next kid. It is so. I mean, I'm having a hard time comprehending it.
Well, also the big difference is
Ben Dunn just built the panel.
The big difference also is that everybody reads manga, even from
right.
the very small kid to the very oldest adult. Everybody reads manga because there's a manga for every taste, every age group, every gender. I mean, it's just manga. There's a manga about anything. You want a manga about cooking? There's a manga about cooking. You want a manga about golf? Manga about golf. There's a manga about fishing. There's a manga about fishing. There's a manga about long distance running. There's a manga about long distance running. The thing is that in Japan, the manga is very ubiquitous and very adaptable to almost any subject matter because there's somebody who's interested in reading that.
Well,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really smart.
I
had a thought and it just went whoosh right out.
I know that as soon as this show's over,
it left a spot right here, Dave.
I know. There's a hole there, I think.
But also, manga artists, they they're not the healthiest bunch of people. I will tell you that much. They dive right into their work, and sometimes it's to the detriment of their health. I mean, there's very little reported about it, but a lot of manga artists suffer a lot of mental and physical distress because they have to meet these deadlines, and they're constantly trying to make sure that they can do that. It's a whole different attitude about producing comics, because if they miss a deadline, they are severely punished, for doing that.
And there are a bunch of new kids coming up too that will take their place, right?
Exactly. There's always competition coming up. So that's also a big difference. That's very little reported as far as manga manga is concerned.
I don't know about the other people, but we're mentally ill when we start into comics. We don't
Yeah, you have to be a little crazy. But we're always in good company.
That's because we see a fellow mentally ill person at every convention we go to. Hey, I'm into comics, me too.
Oh, but
you can't get away from them, actually.
It's fun to meet other people. I always feel like that's one thing we seem to be losing is the ability to just communicate people with face to face.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me text you.
Maybe
give me a call.
Even maybe conventions will save us.
People don't have conversations anymore.
It seems like for independent comics that the convention could become a new store for people who could afford to go to conventions and set up.
I think so. I think that the convention, I know that's for our books, that's where we get a lot of new folks.
Right. Well, because you live in a community that has like 1,000 conventions a year.
This is true.
I wonder if there isn't I wonder if there isn't a business opportunity to have a semi-trailer truck full of independent comics and just go from con to con to con to con selling them.
That's actually a really good idea.
That's a great idea.
Truck of comics.
Yeah,
just do it like a food truck.
Yeah.
Just make it a comic like those old bookmobiles they used to have in elementary schools.
Yeah.
Here's a convention. There's 2 or 3 conventions every weekend.
All the time. All the time. You can just drive all around the country and
you can map it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and independent publishers can participate by just sending their stuff in, and
that's right.
We just give it out to kids and adults, and just make it free for everyone.
There you go, internet. Your free business idea from your pal.
There's my free comic day right there.
See, ingenuity comes from all kinds of places.
Comics used to be disposable, but no longer. Yeah,
just ask my parents.
Yeah, the first one is free.
It could be disposable. They're still disposable. They're still disposable.
Right. Comics are still disposable. What's he talking about?
People just don't bother to throw them away. And be careful what you own, because ultimately it owns you.
All right, kiddies. Thanks so much for joining us. We have zipped through our hour and a half here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Ben, where are you going to be? Where can folks find you?
Well, I'm at www.benduncomics.com. I will also be at the 40th anniversary celebration, March 15th in San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
It's going to be absolutely free if you decide to attend. And there's going to be a lot of artists and writers and fans and all sorts of good stuff.
That's awesome.
Sweet. Dave, what about you? Where are you going to
well,
be? Where
you
can
can always find me and Tom saying all sorts of nonsense over on Geek View Tavern, which is our YouTube show. And then both of us will also be at WonderCon at the end of the month. So
all right, WonderCon.
What's your new job, Dave?
Oh, should I mention that?
You should.
You should.
All right. So I never ever have so I've said a bunch of stuff, but I've not said it on behalf of the con. I'm not speaking for anybody in the organization. I'm just speaking for my own knuckleheadedness. But I am the new marketing and publications editor at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, congratulations.
That's WonderCon, that's Comic-Con, and the Comic-Con Museum.
That's fantastic, Dave. Yeah. Congratulations.
Can I get a table?
No.
Yeah.
You get nothing.
Oh, man, I thought we had a hookup.
Yeah. All right. So, I don't have my calendar up. Hold on. Let me get my calendar up. Tuesday. That Silverline show on Tuesday talking about the perfect shootout. The crew discusses shootouts and how to generate exciting action sequences in the Western genre. That's Tuesday. On Wednesday, the Whammers are going to be here talking about conspiracy theories for fun and profit. Having fun with conspiracy theories and how some have been or could be profitable.
Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
It's always aliens.
Black.
Always aliens.
And they're green. And next week, we're going to have Mr. Steve Scott here, who's been in the chat some.
Yay.
Steve Scott is an artist, and he's going to tell us all about his career and comics in Belgium. And that is next week. Ben, Dave, if y'all can hang out a little bit. Our outro is kind of long, so if you can hang out, it's a good time to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
But until then, remember to
make mine
Silverline.
Silverline.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Click on the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battles and fast-paced speed. From capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days. Hey! New uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Madness Comics sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.